Graces of mystical metaphysical phenomenology, being a conduit of an aesthetic visitation. Beyond suggesting that mystical metaphysical phenomenology is transcendent to the paradigm of reductionist or objectivist circumspection, it is the dimensional domain beyond our temporal, physical, and psychological states. It's the fortuitous meaning of an intervening force and energy gratuitously given as a beneficial option. In being so, it's the liberating emancipator for the particular ad hoc needs in the moment. What I've been pondering is, does this state of grace result from a conscious condition or a set of objective circumstances requiring a favorable receptiveness of morale for the recipient? I've had several over my 73 plus years and am able to say that objectively, virtue or righteousness, as is conventionally conceived, is not the prime factor for its advent. Yet, short of some paranormal, supracarnal source of mentoring favoritism or a pre-incarnated anointed purpose, the reason for being the beneficiary of such fortuitous grace comes about a clearly acceptable explanation. That's why this inquiry into the substance of what I know as phenomenological mystical metaphysics is happening. I do think that it's its own dimension that can intersect as a tangent to our temporal awareness, even if its parallel existence, as far as form and purpose, is inscrutable. Declaring the beneficial effects of its intervention does not usually exclude an amoral aspect of its basic nature. Is my particular experience one that solely exists with its phenomena, or am I one of many unique interactions with this energy force? I can testify that others have indirectly benefited from the advent of this visitation by way of me as a conduit vector. There existed an altruistic goodwill between me and those other persons. What still remains unexplained beyond reductionist random luck denotings is why and how I became that graced. Was it by some unconscious or subconscious attribute? One parallel I found that's similar to my experience is in the scriptures of Genesis 18, verses 1 through 33. In particular, the verses Genesis 18, verses 10 through 14 of the King James Version. Verse 10. And he said, I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life. And lo, Sarah, thy wife, shall have a son. And Sarah heard it in the tent door which was behind him, it was Abraham. Now Abraham and Sarah were old and well stricken in age, and it ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, After I am waxed old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also? And the Lord said unto Abraham, Wherefore did Sarah laugh, saying, Shall I of a surety bear a child, which when I am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the time appointed, I will return unto thee, according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. This fantastical appearance and fulfillment of a given oath to Abraham and Sarah was due to Abraham's receptiveness to the stranger's appearance and subsequent words, and the precipitated those events from the inference I took from that passage. Similarly, I encountered ideas for which I gave credibility from the logic of the idea and the manner that the idea came to my awareness phenomenologically. Most of those ideas and thoughts were archived in my memory as keepers for future use. The additions over the years created an aggregation which, when casually reviewed by me, formed an aesthetic of attitude. That aesthetic attitude could have been configured by a neurological metaphysics as a default antenna that could receive certain signal frequencies. Those frequencies, if found favorable and useful to my present or projected future, were added to the architectural construction of a default antenna. In that way, my neurological SETI telescope became a conduit for ever more particularized and focused signals of anomalous use. In this way, I became an involuntary enabler of the transmitted projections with which I had strong visceral resonance. That resonance radiated out. They most strongly projected and manifested when my emotional investment was abnormally high in resonance with the projections. Since this occurred incrementally over decades of my life, the micro choices I made were influenced subtly and then more consciously as aesthetics came to be the primary determinant of my rationalizations of thought for actions. The incidental distinguishment from my social contemporaries at first, and my contemporaries' cultural emotional web created a more tenuous connection and position I had with my contemporaries and former peers. As a temporal being, this was an issue of adaptation and accommodation that now has resolved as a transactional strategy and tactics of social interaction. Social interactions are more the mechanics of incidental pedestrian navigation and, lesser so, a promotion or branding of my identity. My identity is the relationships I've developed with the mystical metaphysic phenomena, meaning that the events through my refractive subjectively defined aesthetics are the determining factor. It's private and generally anonymous to practically all contemporaries. By seeing my existence as a discipline of a practice dialectics of those accumulating prime aesthetics, I hope to have a highly acute focus that's purged of the non-aesthetic social culture of the incidental pedestrian existence. The prime aesthetics so focused upon will be visitations a la Genesis 18 that will supplement my receptiveness. The ad hoc functional resonations being the organic, incarnated serendipities of union with the knowledge of the eternal cosmic energies. I will be both the catalyst and the precipitation portal of fortuities here on earth as ordained by the cosmic eternal order, aka the CEO. At best, a metaviral spreading of that attitudinal juxtaposition with the CEO will develop a critical mass of social resonation in the temporal pedestrian consciousness. The derived emotional union amongst those of the critical mass would be a matrix force field that generates the hopefully beneficial attributes in the same synchronistic fortuity that I've been subject to and witness of, but on a much grander macro scale. Will these manifestations bend the arc of history and justice to a more favorable position? I can give this neo-testament that if the fortuitous synchronicities occur to many on the macro stage, as happened to me on the micro stage, then Mao's "let many flowers bloom" will be the pastures in which fate will make us lie down in those green pastures, and it will lead us beside the still waters, restoring our souls.